All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Dev Empathy Book Club, where we inspire each other to be better developers and better people by building our empathy skills. And today we're kind of doing a special thing because this is a live episode, so to speak, because both Ariel and myself are here at RailsConf in Minneapolis. And we decided we'd take this opportunity to hide away from the conference and record our next episode about Steve Krug's Rocket Surgery Made Easy. All right, so I think we can get started, and this will be a little bit of a shorter one because it's a little bit of a shorter book, but I think we still have a good chat talking about the things we kind of went through going through the book. So before we dive into anything in particular, so Ariel, what were your thoughts on this book as an accompaniment to the first one?
Sure. So I did notice, some of the same things that I think we talked about at the beginning of the last episode. Just about, kind of it seemed a little bit, diversity blind sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't want to rehash that conversation. I think we want to focus on things that are new to this particular book. In general, I thought it was really helpful. It was not what I was expecting. I was expecting a little bit more theory, and this was like 100% practice.
Yeah.
But you know what? It really, just diving in gave me a very good sense of how it works. The end of the book is like 10 pages of just a script that you can use to literally read off and modify it to your to your needs. Very, very practical. Tend to read here.
Yeah.
I realized after the fact, but I actually it inspired me in my own work at Cloudinary to start looking at, can we incorporate, I'm working on a new version of our API. And so so to me, it was like, wow, this is an opportunity to apply usability testing, a little bit differently, right? This is not a site, not something people can look at and click on. It's a little bit harder to recruit, and we're probably going to talk about recruitment at some point.
Yep.
But how can we incorporate usability testing? Try to make that happen, to introduce that practice into our company. So, one of the most practical and actionable things that we've done so far, certainly to me. How about you, Justin?
So as I kind of said right before we started recording, this is definitely the hands-on field guide, which is basically what it says it is. Right. So it's almost like, it's like an appendix to the original book where I read it and I was like, okay, cool, this is exactly what to do. I kept going, this is exactly what to do. And similar to you, I was like, I feel like a lot of these things I knew from reading the first book, kept nodding, but yeah, best practices, that's how it works. But this is so for I've got some clients with some of the projects we're working on at Lunar Collective that are they could benefit from this. So this is something I'm definitely going to be working into our process, especially this whole, do it routinely, the once a month, grab some people, do this. We have some clients we're working on pre-launch, we're doing MVP build out. And that's something that reminded me that we can do this throughout the process. I can bring someone in to say, okay, here's some random people, we're gonna do some testing, have the client come in, watch, follow the script, and then give them some really good feedback on where it is, instead of doing what we kind of traditionally do, which is do best practices, but then hold off on the big usability testing to the end when we're about to do beta. And this is a great way to kind of adjust that and probably end up with a better product in the end. Cool. Yeah. To kind of reach out about, and one of the first things, doing low-cost usability testing, and yes, if it makes sense or not. So what were your thoughts on this process that you kind of brought up?
Yeah, so I think it's funny because the beginning of the book very much relates to the end of the book, and the book is all about getting buy-in. And I think that that the whole idea of low-cost usability testing is really about, there are some preconceptions about usability testing. You have to have a focus group, and you have to have professionals doing it and recruiting, and very, very costly. Have large sample sizes in order to reach this words are hard. Statistical significance.
Yeah,
I'm very jet lagged right now. For the test that you're doing, especially because a lot of times it means you're asking users to rate things from 1 to 10 or things like that. And this is a very different approach. It's saying that it's true that that's all useful information, and if you can afford it, absolutely do it.
Yeah.
But in the context of your product, just literally watching them use it, see a few people do things right. The quantitative versus qualitative distinction that the author makes is really important. It's funny because we just had some discussion actually at this conference 2 nights ago or 2 afternoons ago. One of the keynotes was about getting more inclusive perspectives in the work that we do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what a lot of the goal is here. Is we have as developers, right, the same way that we want a more diverse team, we also want perspectives of people who don't have the knowledge that we have.
Yeah.
Right. Part of why just as or not team exactly,
right.
but a diverse group of people who are testing your product. But even just the fact that you have people outside your team who are testing, that is already bringing in new perspectives. And I don't think that we think about like what's the exact cost of of diversifying our team. And like, I mean, yes, there are companies that think that way, but I think we think about it in a very qualitative way. We think about well, our product is just going to be better if we have a more diverse team working on it. And I think the same thing is true here. It's that we don't have to think about what exactly is the is and thinking about things in a very quantitative way, just very qualitatively, right? Having sharing their experiences, that's going to already make it a better product.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's definitely something that I think us as developers get in our own minds about like doing it right or not doing it at all kind of a thing. And this is definitely something that every little bit counts, especially when you're trying to build things for a wide audience of people. You want everyone to feel like this is their perspective was thought of. So getting that diversity in there is really important. And then later on, Krug talks about napkin sketches and wireframes and some of the limitations, but also some of the benefits of doing it this way. Did you have any thoughts on that exactly?
Yeah, so I remember hearing a story. I forget which company it was, but presentation about his product that didn't exist yet. But I think it was something for restaurants. He would basically walk into restaurants and try to sell his product to the the restaurant owner. And when he started seeing more people who actually basically would pull out their credit card and say, "Great, I want to register for this product," that's when he knew that he had a market fit. We think that we have to have everything has to be there and perfect. And true, the time to find out. It's already behind you if you're already asking the question, right?
Yeah.
If you're ever asking the question, the answer is go do that. Really are built around users, built around needs, and the more you understand the needs, and the more you see, in a very general sense, are we meeting the need, right? The earlier you can major goal of testing these early stages, like napkin sketches.
Delivering value to a client or to your business in general, it's it's super important to get some of these things out early. It's not uncommon to spend a lot of dev hours building a feature or building some implementation of a feature that when it meets users, it does not work. And you have to spend tons of hours then either fixing it or changing it or throwing it out, whatever it is, when that could have been fixed at we have a client right now we're working with, that's kind of their whole startup idea, is you can have wireframes and then do A/B testing really quickly, because they know it's a lot less costly to do some of this user testing at just the UX level without anything behind it actually working, but well before you actually go and build that UX and then have to adjust on the fly.
Yeah, and I think that's becoming a more common practice as well. I mean, there are tools that are out there now. I think InVision has something like that, and I'm sure there are other competitors who do the same thing, where you can just create a mock-up and just put it in front of in front of users and find out how they react. And you build one very narrow work, and then and it'll work exactly, right?
Yeah.
But you see, do they actually find that flow, or do they get lost along the way? And that's something that can be very, very valuable and save you a lot of time. Rather than building for every case, you basically build just enough for one case, and see if it works and see if people can follow.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like that. So moving on a little bit, Krug talks about the value of using a script, right? He talks about how this is going to help the usability of the testing you're doing. It's going to really help with just kind of talk extemporaneously, which is not something you want to do when you're trying to have a repeatable set of tests with different people and then clarify the outcome. So what was your takeaway from that whole bit?
Yeah, So first of all, in terms of the narrow scope of usability testing, absolutely, scripts seem like a really good idea. I like the idea that you want your test to be a little bit clinical.
Yeah.
Right? You want to make sure that you're not accidentally impacting the results of the test by saying something different to one person versus another. It just kind of prompts. So one example I can think of is, I had a situation at a previous company where I took over a project. There was one person who was working on it. Used to be a team of 25. It was down to just him.
Okay.
And he was kind of like the sole repository of information, and he was the only one who knew. Yeah. And then next time I'm going to do it, and then and it'll be okay. And my boss told me, no, I want you to document it, like every step. First time, you're gonna go through it, you're gonna document it, and then the next do it without his help, and you're gonna see what's missing from there, right? And then you're gonna have like a real script that you can follow, or you can pass on to someone else who's gonna be able to follow. A lot of what we do, we talk about. And there are some things that we can automate through the use of machines, but there are some things that it's either too costly to automate it, it's just not worth it, or it's just not possible for one reason or another in the current state. Having scripts, having checklists can be really, really helpful, right? The checklist manifesto, I'm sure I was ready to say it, yeah. I'm sure that's in your head. Yeah. Did have a couple of checklists here. I think there was a chapter entitled "Boring Checklists."
It was just all checklists.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And they're not just about not forgetting what to do, but also sometimes making sure that you don't accidentally introduce steps that can also cause problems.
Yeah, exactly. And just to jump off of that, with the checklist manifesto thing, we kind of met a few Rails conferences ago when I was giving a workshop on communication, and one of the things I used as inspiration/research for that talk was I read the checklist manifesto, which is all about the benefits you as a person, but your organization and your team can have through systematizing the things you work on. Like, there are some things that are not automatable, or at least not these days, and they benefit from having a checklist. Like, this is the reason why pilots and surgeons use checklists, is because not that they're incompetent, but because it prevents them from making mistakes. And then you can improve that. And that I kept getting flashbacks to that. Well, ways we could use scripts in some of the things we use internally. The closest thing I can think of is right now at Lunar Collective, we do monthly check-ins with all the employees. So it's not like a traditional review. It's really just, I want to know how everyone's feeling, how everyone's doing. And now we've decided to break it up into two parts, where we have a quote unquote script, which is kind of like a survey, which is the same every single time. And then they get to see the results, and we get to kind of, and we have an in-person discussion. And we used to do those at the same time, but then what that happened was, because it was me giving it every time, it would diverge, and I would ask different questions. And then I'd be like, oh no, I didn't ask them if their goals have changed in the last month, and now it's been 2 months. And I always think it's really important to do goal tracking with your team, to check in often. You really shouldn't do the thing a lot of companies do, which is also yearly review. I don't remember any of my goals from last year. It's been a year. Those don't apply anymore. Yeah. So I find stuff like that could really benefit us as far as how we approach certain situations where you want to have.
I think that it requires a lot of humility to say, I am a human being, right? And human beings are good at a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we're not good at is consistency.
Yeah.
We are dynamic creatures. We do different things every time, and sometimes consistency is a very, very big value. A written document of some sort, a checklist, a script, etc. And I think that's part of why it's really difficult for us to admit that we need it when we need it.
Yeah.
But when we can, it can be very valuable.
Yeah. I mean, first, but the most pushback I get from developers when I talk about things like checklists and scripts and things similar to that is an ego thing, in that they're trying to hide that they take me suggesting, hey, you should write a checklist, and then do that every time, as me telling them, you can't do your job right, you're going to mess up. And it's like, I'm not saying you can't do your job right or that you are going to mess up, but that something will happen at some point. And this just prevents that from happening. Because I know I do that all the time. Like I've deployed apps thousands of times, and then like one time I'm like, oh, did I not? Oh, right. That's why I was mad. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. And like you can set little reminders for yourself and little doohickeys, but they're all just like band-aids when you could systematize that process. And then hopefully you now have a new avenue for how to fix things in the future, right? Like something goes wrong, you adjust the script, you adjust the checklist, and now you have something new to work on that can help improve the whole process going forward. You know, you're not getting the right results with usability testing, or it seems like something's leading people astray. You can adjust that script to kind of get you back on path. Speaking of the wrong path, so getting off on the wrong foot, right? So in chapter 12, talks about this problem of getting off the wrong foot and giving people the wrong idea about your site. Do you have any thoughts about how this might happen on like a small scale or a large scale with like a certain company, or any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I mentioned in the discussion questions that I put on the Slack chat that look at your own company's homepage.
Yep.
And think about, if I was a user, I don't know anything about your company, right? And I show up on your homepage, am I going to know what your company does? I'm sure they paid people a lot of money to do it well.
Yep.
And I try to think about different kinds of users also. There's users who, because we think about, we have different scales of clients, right? We have has thousands and thousands of users, right? So we have our free users who are just coming along and they want to try stuff out. We have, let's say, small businesses who probably have heard of us and that's why they're coming to us. But they might want to know more information before jumping in and starting to pay money. And then you have large customers who have onboarding process. We just took on a big client. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say who, but there was like a week long meeting between our people and their people, and then first at their office and then our office. It was like the page really has to serve all those different groups, and depending on how you prioritize each group, right? Because the homepage is about project selling to like very large, so the smaller users, maybe they. But definitely, if you're facing, individual users, individual developers, certainly if it's a developer tool, if you're some kind of e-commerce company, if you're I don't know, a car rental company, whatever it is, right? Any kind of anything, right? That faces large numbers of people, you really have to be careful. They can figure out very quickly exactly what you do. And a lot of companies make that mistake. I mean, if you're like, American Airlines, right? Yeah. People can probably figure out just from the name that that you fly planes. Yeah. So again, car rental company websites, they assume that you know who they are, and they already have just the form of like, when do you want to reserve a car? I don't know. Is that a good idea? Is it not a good idea?
Oh yeah. I mean, I can definitely speak to this because we are right now in a very long website redesign. It's long because I have to do most of it. But basically, I had some people in the industry who also do consulting agency. It looks fine, but it's not doing what it's supposed to do. Like the Lunar Collective website like says we're a consultancy and says we do services. Prospective buyer, like a larger company or even like an individual CEO, they aren't going to get much meat. Like they get to see that we care about education, we care about empathy and teams, and that we write good software, but we don't back that up with like why. And we don't really pitch like what our value is to these individual people. So we've been going through and we'll be doing a lot more user testing as we kind of build out new pages that kind of explain how we actually do what we do and what we do and why we do it. And yeah, it's funny how like it can seem great to the whole team. We all were like, this is great, but like we're not the same people who would be buying our services. So to us, it sounds like it's doing its job. But when people come to the site who've never looked at it before with the eyes of, okay, well, if I was to use you as a service, then they're like, oh, this doesn't really tell me what I'm looking for, So that was definitely something that I had to learn recently. And I'm going through the process of hopefully rectifying that. And this actually reminds me a little bit of something else in the book, which is the idea of like remote testing, right? The pros and cons of in a white room versus like just sending a form out basically and saying, okay, here it is. I want you to just, fill out the survey afterwards or let us record your screen, do whatever you need to do. But they're remote. They're not attached to your space physically. And what did your takeaways from the kind of pros and cons of that?
Yeah. So it's sort of funny. My views on remote testing have changed over time through the course of reading this book and the previous book and really understanding the process that Steve Krug advocates for. My initial experience with usability testing was at my previous company with usertesting.com, right? That so we had one of the product people says, hey, here's a thing that we did on usertesting.com. Just a couple of videos of people trying to use the site that we're creating. Like we're familiar with some of the issues, but it was painful. It was so painful to watch somebody try to use the site. I think there was one test where like they got through about, they were given like here's a link and here's a set of tasks and follow the instructions and now try to do this. Yeah. Right. And so they perform a search and it's like 3 minutes and they do all the setup, they log in, etc. They perform a search. And the spinner just keeps going. No. and basically it was like they spent I think like 2-3 minutes just like watching the spinner spin, like commenting like this is taking a while. I wonder if something's broken. Yep. and we're just like sinking deeper and deeper in our chair. I was like, no. But it made a powerful impact on me just seeing remote testing. So for me, I was like, yeah, remote testing, like that's a great thing. It's easy. And it just, it's like calling an API, right? Yeah. So you call out to user testing, you say like, here's our instructions, right? And then, I don't know if it's actually done through an API, but I'm saying like it's similar to calling an API, in that like you throw out your instructions and you get back a response, right? Then I read these two books and why there's all the introductory steps and why there's the steps at the end. And I started thinking about, it's less about the remote element, but more about low touch versus high touch testing. Yeah. Right? So there's low touch testing where you basically go use our new software for a bit and, fill out a survey or something, about your experiences, all the way up to like, something like usertesting.com, and that's kind of like on the high touch end of the low touch, where you basically give them instructions and they're doing a set of tasks and you do get the recording at the end, but you don't have the opportunity to probe. Yeah. And so I saw a video that Steve Krug made, I think it's mentioned somewhere in the book, where he does a sample usability test. And just seeing the way that he goes through the process with the person, guides them through, adjust the tasks based on what the person seems able to do, or is able to kind of switch out things at the last minute, and provide at least a little bit of feedback to the person. And I said, well, that's actually kind of nice. I think you could do a lot of that still remotely with, again, you have to do your recruitment, but then you can just set up a remote, like a Google Hangout or a Skype session or whatever is your technology of choice. Zoom is actually Zoom would be good. Yeah, because you could record the whole video and they can record their screen and see their face and everything. Yeah, exactly. So Zoom would be probably really good for that actually. And other software as well. Yeah. But the idea of the high touch testing, I understand it a little bit more now. I think having watched an example and read through the book and understanding a lot of the theory better through seeing how the practice works. Yeah, I've definitely been a part of teams where high touch testing happened, but I was never a part of that. So I think the closest I've been to that wasn't in the web world, but in game design. It's very important to get people's feedback, like making sure your games are usable and that people can understand it. Because games need to show, not tell. Like you don't need to ever have a box in a game that tells you how to jump. Like you should know it. So a big way to do that is to have someone play your game and then you just are right over them hovering. You know what I mean? You need to make sure you don't influence them in the wrong way, but remote doesn't really work. You need to actually be there or at least see everything that's happening, Yeah. A small aside, just because I have to say at this point, is the importance of redoing user testing as you make changes to your site. Because I was building a site a couple years ago, and it was basically a really long profile. And you just had to fill out
dozens of pages about yourself and also their info. And we ended up adding a progress bar on the sidebar that told you how much of your profile, make that more noticeable. They thought people were ignoring it. That would load how much of your profile was complete. And then we got like a few bug reports the following weeks of people saying the site doesn't load anymore. And we couldn't track it down. We couldn't figure out why the site never, and it was like an internal app, watched them, and it was because their profile was only 75% filled out. So they thought the app was only 75% loaded. They still used it all day, like there's no problem, but they're like, it never finishes loading. I don't know what the other 25. Right, and then we reverted it, and then added more explanation, and yeah. But you never know how sometimes people will mistake something, right? We thought moving the same element to a different part of the screen would just be the same thing. But if they ignored it down there, now they think it's just the loading part of the whole site. And that was a completely different outcome. Yeah.
There's one more thing I want to mention about remote testing in terms of diversity in your recruitment. If you recruit only locally, right, that's gonna minimize your potential pool of candidates. At the same time, if you're doing remote testing, that also limits your pool of potential candidates because there's a certain amount of technology and internet access you have to have and own in order to remote test effectively.
Yeah.
And if I think to some degree it's possible maybe to use both strategies to complement each other.
Yeah.
But you really have to be very based over the course of our usability testing. I think Krug says recruit. One of his maxims is recruit loosely and grade on a curve.
Yeah, I like that.
So essentially, like on one hand, software for doctors, you don't want to recruit airplane pilots. I'm sure they're very intelligent, but they're not going to help you test your software.
Yep.
And don't get lawyers and don't get accountants, right? It's just not going to work. So yes, there's sometimes you have to have restrictions, but within those restrictions, recruit as loosely as you can and try to get many people from different backgrounds, and get a real diversity of reaction to your product. And that's going to very much improve the quality, right? Again, these are qualitative tests. Numbers can lie, right? On quantitative, quantitative tests, we can go, oh, we tested 300 users and we got these results, but who were those 300 users? Were they like a very specific subset of users that don't really reflect the vast array of people who might use our product? So I think with a qualitative test, it's much easier to get that again, and maybe also even more with high-touch testing. But you're able to get more of those voices into the room. And again, if we think about it, getting more voices into the room, well, now the quality of each voice, right? The amount that we're able to extract information from each individual voice and get new perspectives from each voice matters a whole lot.
Yeah.
So just think about your recruitment strategy, whether you're doing remote or you're doing in person. How are we going to get a wider array of voices into the room?
Yeah, and ultimately this comes back to what we do. This is empathy, and this is empathy for our users of our product. And I think this extends from our bosses and our clients who we need to make sure that to like other developers. Like a big thing has always been for me is like, we learn these things in our job. This is something you can apply to any output. Hey, I'm working on a new CLI tool that I think is going to really be helpful for a bunch of people. Well, do some user testing. Like, see what actually makes sense. Like, does your new custom URL, your new custom command line option parser not make any sense? So I think stuff like that is on the book.
Yeah. I did speak to me. He said, I think this was also one of his maxims, right?
Yeah.
Was, the in big bold letters.
Yeah.
I think he changed the color between the books just to say like, this is a new book, so it's different colors.
Exactly.
But he said, always err on the side of the participant's feelings.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to make sure that, look, our goal here in usability testing is to reach out to users, to connect with people, to understand them better. But part of that is making it a humane process.
Yeah.
And making sure that we're not trying to like tax them and stress them out. In the same way that, you know, it's really important not to overwork your employees. Also need to respect that, in a sense, even more so we need to respect that the people who have graciously given up their time, and yes, we're paying them for that. You know, we also pay our workers, and we should treat them fairly. We're paying people to come test things for us. I think it's very possible to be humane in your ability to, or in your attempt to be more.
It's definitely something that I worry sometimes in big organizations that do all their testing just through number, just quantitative, with like, well, 80% of people made it through, I think that means it's good. It's like they're not accounting for like the feeling of those people making it through that process. And you can kind of see how some products and some teams have built things that seem so tone deaf or seem so just wrong. But it's like, yeah, people understand it and they hate it. You know, that might, like, the usefulness of this type of testing is still valuable, even if you do have the ability to just spin up 20,000 users and say, here, you use it. You know, it's like, we should actually look at what the actual feelings coming out of that.
And I think at the same time also, like you said, you know, so 80% of people made it through. Why did those 20% not make it through? Was it because it's just some people get it, some people don't, and whatever? Was it because, well, you know, certain percentage of people have, even if it's 3% or 2% or 1%, maybe they have a disability that doesn't let them get through. Suddenly it's like, oh wow, we have like an accessibility problem on our site. Right. It's like that's what I'm saying. Like the numbers can lie, and you need to look at individual cases as well. And again, ideally, a broad range of that works well for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. Well, with that, I would say this book was valuable and worth reading. And I think if anyone's interested in actually the hands-on practicalness of it, like, I think they should definitely read it as well and then share their thoughts on it.
I think it was like, it's a little dry to read without the other book.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely read the first one.
Right. Don't Make Me Think was the first book. So definitely read. And it'll tell you how to apply those ideas practically, and hopefully it'll work great for you.
Yeah, sounds good. Do you want to tell everyone what our next book is?
Yes, our next book is by Oren J. Sofer. It is called Say What You Mean: A Mindful Approach to Nonviolent Communication. I ordered the book already. I think it's been delivered, but I'm not at home, so I don't have a copy to like hold up to the screen. To combine the approaches of nonviolent communication as well as mindfulness, and give much more practical methods of communication. You know, really take it down into the realm of the practical. And by the way, we have a special guest who's going to be joining us for this next years. He's behind the Emotional API project. His talks and stuff that he's written, and we look forward to having him join the panel.
Yeah, it's gonna be really exciting. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. Please make sure to stay updated about DevEmpathy events by following us on Twitter @DevEmpathy, and of course, you don't forget to join us on Slack using the link on our site, which is devempathybook.club. We look forward to